Hey guys, welcome back to our live afternoon feeding. We're actually going to do the lionfish here, but I'm standing in front of this exhibit so you can see me because I want to show you what we're about to feed them. If you look in here, this is a cup. It's got some salt water in it. It's kind of difficult to see. These guys are called ghost shrimp or grass shrimp. They're Palaunides is the genus, but they're essentially kind of a ubiquitous shrimp all over marsh areas. You'll find them here in fresh and salt water. So we're going to actually give them live food, but cut food I'm going to start them off at. We usually don't feed them live food. We're going to kind of do that for enrichment, and we're going to do it so you guys can see how they eat. But this is ordinarily what we give them. These are little, I call it popcorn shrimp. A squid head, you can see the eye and the tentacles there. Piece of gel. You've probably seen us feeding the gel diet to a lot of other stuff, like the tail section of a cape one here. Some other things, the head section. So I'm going to open this cabinet up. I'm going to leave that behind, open my cabinet. We have to keep the cabinet locked. Let's walk over here for a minute. Got lots of keys here in the dark. So we keep this cabinet locked because these guys are venomous. They're actually native to the Pacific Ocean, kind of a tropical species. They were introduced here several decades ago. You can kind of read the sign there. But they don't have any natural predators. They are venomous, meaning they're not poisonous, but venomous rather. So the top of the dorsal spine here acts like a hypodermic needle. And if you were to step on it, or a predator were to bite down on it, it pushes the bony ray down, and then the venom comes out the top. So I'm going to start throwing food in here. I'm going to start with the cut food, and then I'm going to put the live shrimp in there. So these guys are pretty, but they're not the smartest fish in the world, so you may see a pause in the time between when the food hits the water and when they get it. So I throw shrimp in there, and you'll see if you watch how they do it, they'll come up and extend their mouth. It's hard to see because they do it so fast, but they expand their buccal cavity here. Boom. It's hard. I'm going to try and get it right in front. Like that. Well, they eat it so fast. I'm sorry, you got a question already?
Yes, from Auden. How do they survive in Virginia if they're tropical?
Well, that's an interesting question. What they do, they usually go offshore, and you'll find them around wrecks. They can go out to the Gulf Stream, where the water's warmer all year round. I'm going to keep throwing food in here. So offshore, it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but because shallow water usually warms up faster, but warmer water is offshore around here. And so they'll head out or stay, they kind of not go dormant, but stay kind of in low energy mode off on a wreck and kind of hide down at the bottom where the temperature's more stable. I'm going to get the shrimp really quick. All right, so they're all excited now. You can see them kind of following me.
I'm going to go from this
I'm
side.
going to pour this in. So if you watch all the shrimp, you can see them. So I'm kind of gulping them up. What they do is they use their gills and highly kind of producible or expandable mouth to open it really fast, so it's like a suction. And so you'll see them. I'm going to try and focus in on one of the shrimp here. They're very difficult to see, and they blend in really well. So the lionfish also have a hard time finding them, but they really enjoy it. All right, there's another question.
Yes, Callie, age 5, asks, do the fish ever shed their skin?
Here's one going to eat it. Oh, there you go, right there. You just ate it. They don't really shed their skin so much. They do slough off older skin just like anything else, but they don't shed it like, say, a snake would or anything. It grows with them. It's kind of a living organ just as it is on us. And they actually have quite a few senses through their skin. If you see, it's called a lateral line. There's a line going down from behind its eye through the middle of its tail. They sense pressure changes and certain things like that, and the skin's really important. Yeah, I got another question?
Yes, do they recognize individual people like yourself?
I don't know that they recognize, they certainly recognize the color of our shirts. I think if you had one at home and you were the sole caretaker of it, it would probably start to recognize you. but I think they recognize just kind of the staff shirts. I'm going to start throwing food up here near the top. If you want to watch that again, you might be able to see them eating a little more clearly. Try and throw it in front of you. There, see how you suck it in there.
The problem is they're following me.
So we just throw a few pieces in here at a time so it doesn't settle to the bottom. It takes them a little while to locate the food, because ordinarily in the wild, they're kind of ambush predators. What they would do is get up under, say, like these rocks, spread their fins out, and they look pretty obvious in here, but they're actually pretty difficult to see when they're in kind of a coral reef setting. And so what they'll do, you can see them doing it right here. They'll put their fins out and kind of use it to corral food right in front of their face, kind of disorients them, and you can also see them putting their fins up. It's kind of an offensive and defensive kind of posture. Yeah, go ahead, another question?
Yeah, we had a question. How many can be kept in a tank?
It depends on the size. See, these guys get a little beat up, and if you watch, when I feed them, they're pretty rough with each other. They don't have, they're not practicing good social distancing here, where they'll run into each other. And usually you get a big aggressive one like the guy out front, and a smaller, less aggressive one gets less food. So, long story short, it depends on how many, or how big as to how many you can keep. These guys, we usually keep about 5 to 6 to allow them plenty of space. But if they keep growing, we'll probably start thinning them out.
What would happen if a person were injected with their venom?
It would hurt really bad. I'm not sure that there's any recorded fatalities from lionfish, or at least this species of lionfish. There are other more venomous species like scorpionfish that could be potentially fatal, but you'd have a lot of swelling and a lot of pain. It's kind of a nerve toxin type deal where it just creates a painful scenario. It's not meant to, as like another animal would use to inject to subdue prey. It's more a defensive thing. So they mainly want to make you hurt and then swim away.
Are both males and females venomous?
Yes, both. There really isn't a way to tell the difference between the two from the outside, and you can see their beautiful fins here fluttering in the breeze. So the interesting thing about lionfish, and someone asked earlier how they survive in Virginia, they were actually introduced as a tropical fish down in Florida. You know, people released monkeys and lizards and all kinds of stuff down there, and rock pythons and things like that. These were introduced in southern waters, but have been able to adapt to more northern climates, and actually have made their way all the way up to New York, off the coast of New York. So these guys started out as an invasive species and then end up as kind of a tropical migrant, meaning that they've moved up when the weather's warm. So I'm going to show you another couple like that behind me here. Oh, got another question?
Yeah, how many spines does each fish have?
They have somewhere, I think, around a dozen. You can probably count them here. There's what's called hard rays and then soft rays. The hard rays are the ones here that are sticking up, and the soft rays are the ones with the little patches on them. So if you count them, 3,
I just counted
6,
10 on that
yeah,
last one.
between 10 and 12. It usually varies too. So we're going to head over here. And I think Britt's going to be back here, and we're going to feed filefish. These guys are really interesting. So they also have kind of a spine on their... Oh, I'm sorry, you have another question?
No, it's telling her to go ahead and feed.
So you'll see, I'm going to stay out of this picture, but see a little spine on these guys right there, and that does not have any venom, but it's also a defensive structure where these are much smaller fish. If a predator came along and they wanted to get away from them, they could jam themselves down in the rocks and then trip that, what's called a trigger or a file, and it'll prevent the fish from pulling them backwards. They also have very kind of sandy skin, so these guys are real tough. You see they have a kind of a beak-like mouth. They're about to be fed here in a minute, so they're looking forward to it. I got another question.
Yeah, I think this was about the lionfish, but probably could be asked here. Do they have ears?
They don't have ears per se, but they have ear bones. They don't have kind of an external ear where There's like a canal that goes to the drum itself, but they can hear. They're actually sensitive. I'll kind of knock on the glass here, and it kind of makes them twitch. So they do hear us, and we actually use that for training, where we'll kind of tap on the glass, and they'll know they're about to be fed. So they do have ear bones. So I guess you could say they do have ears, but not the way you're thinking, not the way like a mammal might, where there's a kind of ear canal and an external organ. So I'm going to kind of keep going this way a little bit. So these are kind of all unusual species here. There you go. So they're eating right now. And see how excited they get. And they have little teeny mouths, so they kind of pick apart this. I got another question. Yeah.
Yeah. Do their eyes glow? They look different from the other fish.
Well, they don't glow, but they do reflect. Yeah, you can see how they're kind of reflecting blue. We just put a different light on here. They're kind of a structure, low light fish, so they'd be down near, you know, wrecks and things like that, doing what they do here. And so if you also notice, their eyes move independently, so they're really kind of neat. They have very good eyesight, so that's just a mechanism in the back of their, I think it's called a tympanum, to reflect light forward to kind of give them better vision in a low light situation.
What type of fish are these again?
Sorry, these are called plainhead filefish. So they're the plainhead, it's plain like P-L-A-N-E, like a plane, not like an airplane, but like a slope, and then filefish for the file. So, and their skin, kind of their sandpaper type skin. So then you'll see they're kind of colored anywhere from olive green to kind of a mottled tan. So these guys do get quite a bit bigger. If you want to, I'm gonna keep moving on here. Let's go. I'm gonna show you these just because they're really neat and everybody loves them. This is our balloon fish here. He's really sweet. You can look at his face. These guys are trained really well. The aquarium staff does a lot of enrichment with them. And this is a striped burrfish. These guys breed on. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You have a
We
question?
have several questions about why are their eyes blue, and I guess the puffers also have blue eyes.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, it's just kind of the reflection in the lighting. We use a lot of LED lighting here, and it's just kind of the way it reflects off the back of their membrane there. This is another example of an animal with really good eyesight, and they kind of move independently as well. So that's probably what you're noticing is just a really highly evolved eye. And yeah, that's a good question. You got another one?
Yes. Are puffers related to filefish?
No, they are not. But kind of showing you a bunch of unusually shaped fish that also have different types of locomotion too, meaning they kind of swim differently. You'll see this puffer here swimming with they're using their pectoral fins, meaning their side fins, and the little teeny dorsal and anal fins. The filefish over there use the dorsal and anal, but they kind of oscillate it really interesting, kind of like a sine wave. And the lionfish, though their fins are really big, they don't swim very fast. If you notice, they're just kind of sitting here. So they're not, even though they have a lot of finnage, it's really fine. You can see some of it's even broken off because they're, like I said, they're rough with each other, but they're actually very poor swimmers.
Where did we get them from?
We actually, part of the, these guys essentially get eradicated, or there's a lot of eradication programs to get them out of the wild, especially in Florida. So some places will go down and collect them and then show them. Some places will spear gun them just to get them out, because they eat a lot of the native fish. We actually buy them from a company that does that. So they catch these out of Florida waters. So this is a Indo-Pacific species, but we got them, they were captured down in the Florida Keys, so where they don't belong. There's trying to develop a market to eat these guys, so people will start collecting them for food, start catching them on their own. It's kind of difficult because they're in reef structures, so they're not easy to catch from an angler, and they're not easy to handle because they're venomous.
Are they mean?
No, they're not mean. They can be kind of aggressive with each other. They're pretty passive, actually. Their first instinct is kind of defense, where they'll jam in the rocks and give your spines. We actually get into this tank to pull these rocks and coral out. So we'll climb up in here while they're in here, and they don't tend to bother us at all.
Do they breed?
We haven't had breeding success. We've had instances where they have ejected eggs. I don't know if they were ever fertilized. They don't in here, and I would think this is kind of this exhibit, we keep it at a constant temperature and a constant kind of light cycle. So usually with fish, you have to change either their temperature or their light cycle to get them to breed. There's kind of a temperature trigger. The trigger is kind of the hormonal desire to breed.
Are any of your fish related to stargazer fish?
Stargazers, no, they aren't related. Stargazers is their own thing, but that's another interesting fish with the kind of an adaptation where they have an electric organ behind their ears, and so that's another. So I'll show you all kind of the weird stuff.
It's not so much a question, but a comment that someone saw one at Virginia Beach once. So we haven't seen any in Virginia ourselves.
What, lionfish?
Lionfish.
No, but I know a guy who collects them down at Oregon Inlet. So that's as far north as I've seen them. But like I said, they go as far north as North Carolina. Or I'm sorry, New York.
Do people eat pufferfish?
They do eat pufferfish, but they have a tendency to get ciguatera, which is kind of a bacterial toxin. So you got to be really careful how you eat it. There's a kind of famous Simpson episode where he thinks he's going to die because he ate a pufferfish. Because eating some puffers can be very poisonous. So they supposedly taste like chicken, but I guess you could say that about anything. So these guys right here are really interesting. These are orange filefish. You may have seen them in a previous program we've had. So they also have that kind of long dorsal spine. See how their fins move? They're really interesting. They're kind of looking at us. They're really, oh yeah, so we're gonna give these guys also get an enrichment. There's gonna be some, I'm gonna give them some more live food. Let's see what they do here. I'm gonna try and put this near the surface because they're gonna go nuts. And they're gone. Yeah. So you see that one? See, he's chasing that one. Actually, that shrimp got on that thing. It's pretty smart. He's up on that piece of kind of fake kelp we have there. So these guys are really smart, and you can see how they're really curious. They're coming around. They hear us. Somebody asked if they can hear, so they can hear us coming. They recognize staff. They recognize they're going to be fed. You could put just about anything in here, and they'd swim up to it and check it out. So they're investigating the cup. So they've never seen a cup before, but they're picking at it. So they're just assuming it's food because whenever there's activity, there's usually food related to it. But like I was talking about tropical kind of migrants up into this area when the water warms up. These guys over the years, we saw them a long time ago. I think we used to catch them about 20 years ago or so and hadn't seen them for a while. And last couple of years, they've been all over the place. We've actually been targeting them down in North Carolina, but Cape Charles happened to have quite a few this year, and we've seen them all over the place. This is kind of part of their northern range, and so it's kind of neat to see them around. They seem kind of exotic for this area. It's a fish you normally wouldn't see. We see them around sargassum beds or, again, structure, reef type things. You see how they swim. They're not super fast swimmers there. They just kind of undulate their dorsal and pectoral fins, which is kind of cool.
They're fast enough for the camera.
Yeah. So if you guys, you have a question? No. So if you guys don't have any more questions, or you do, you can actually ask them on Facebook. I'm sorry, you got a question?
Yeah, so these fish are found in the Chesapeake Bay?
Yes, in late summer generally, once the water warms up. A lot of the stuff in the bay, you'll find in, I guess from about here onward, there's not a whole lot of, per se, like permanent fish species in the bay. There's only about 9 or 10, depending on how you count permanent. So most everything is a migratory species that comes into the bay and utilizes either for food or as a nursery. So when it's cold in the winter, you can get cod, you get seals, things like much northern species. And then in late summer, you can get tarpon, all different kinds of stuff. We caught a plumed scorpion fish, all kinds of things. So these guys do come into the bay, but again, they're temporary residents. They would not survive a year-round. The bay can fluctuate anywhere from 40 degrees to 85 degrees in the summer, and so it's a pretty drastic temperature change for most fish. And these guys don't swim very fast, so they're usually pushed up here passively as young fish, either as larval fishes or young ones can come into the bay and then leave. But if they get trapped in here, they would not survive overwintering.
How do we catch them?
We catch these guys in a seine net inshore. Just about everything we catch as juveniles. It's a lot better for us because we can monitor their health. They acclimate to captivity a lot better. We can train them throughout their lives. Plus, we don't have a boat, so we got to catch everything from shore. So everything we're going to get is usually pretty small. A few of our staff have connections over at VIM, so we sometimes get fish off some of their surveys and all that. So we have all these permits from North Carolina, fresh and saltwater, Virginia, fresh and saltwater, all different types of things that allows us to go out and catch these fish.
What are the smaller fish in here?
Those are spade fish, and they were pulled from another exhibit. We had an oyster reef tank. I don't know if you guys have been here before. It was out on the floor, but had kind of a system malfunction out there, and so we had to pull them out. And these guys are all really docile. The spade fish will leave them alone. You can see they're kind of a schooling fish. They'll get much larger. We actually have them in the Chesapeake Bay Aquarium here at about their maximum size, but everybody really prizes the orange filefish, so we want to make sure whatever we put in here won't pick at their fins, which sometimes happens when things have long frilly fins like this. Yeah, you got another question?
What is their biggest predator?
The filefish or the spade fish? Well, the spade fish are a really popular sport fish, and everything eats spade fish. Sharks will eat them, larger fish, grouper, jacks. The filefish, or I guess sea turtles would eat them, larger fish would eat them. You may have heard me say before, their skin is really rough, and there's not a whole lot of meat to them. So I think anything that would probably fit them into their mouths, I'm sure a grouper would certainly eat them, or a jack, but once they get about this size, they're not going to be the ideal food. I'm sure something would eat it opportunistically, but nothing really hunts filefish.
How often do you broadcast these shows? Just a good wrapping point for us.
Oh yeah, well, we'll have another one at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. We do 2 a day on the weekdays and 1 a day Saturdays and Sundays. We do 11 o'clock Saturday, Sunday, and 11 and 2:30 on the weekdays. So that being said, we have the schedule online on our Facebook page. Check us out on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and check out our natural education series, which has all kinds of stuff, not only this, but astronomy and things on birds and mammals and just science in general. So we appreciate you joining us. And again, I think tomorrow at 11 o'clock is
Sharks.
Sharks. So we're doing sharks. So it's for our Earth Day, and we'll be talking about shark conservation. We get them, we were talking about VIMS earlier. They're part of a research program. So for Earth Day, we'll be talking about shark conservation and tell you what we do here and tell you a little bit about the programs that they do in the field where we get them from. All right, guys, thanks for visiting, and check out our Facebook page, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock.